Hi, my name is Bourque. Um, I was in the Canadian Armed Forces from 1998 to 2012, and I deployed twice to the former Yugoslavia and Bosnia.
I'm Master Warrant Officer Tyson Burch. I've been with the Royal Olympic Rifles and been in for 19 years now as a reservist.
I'm Kyle Forcier. I was a Master Corporal with the Combat Engineers. Served one tour in Afghanistan in 2009 until 2010. Overall, I was with the military for 11 years.
So how old were you when you joined the military?
Joined the military, I was 19 when I joined. Kyle at 19, I'm not from Manitoba, I'm from Saskatchewan. I moved to Manitoba to go to U of M. And I knew one person in the military my entire life. That was my cousin. She was a medic. And she kind of enticed me to get into the military. I didn't want to be in the military at all. But she said, hey, they could help you pay for your schooling. So I probably am not as maybe as confident as I am now before I got into the military, and maybe not as structured as I am now. But my upbringing was very like work ethic and that kind of thing growing up, so I had that. So I mean, transitioning into the military, it definitely was scary, but it wasn't too far of a leap at all.
So I played guitar in a bunch of metal bands. I was sort of in the punk rock scene and all that kind of stuff. But I went to school down the street from Kapyong Barracks. And all my life I was sort of like checking out what the guys at Kapyong Barracks were doing, running around with their maroon like sweatshirts and stuff, or they're going on like full weapon rock marches through tuxedo. Would have been fun if social media was a thing back then, because you would have got like the comments from the neighborhood, the dudes running around with machine guns. But yeah, I came from a pretty easy background, and I graduated from high school in '96 and worked for a bit, and then the flood of '97 happened. And I was barely 18, maybe even 17 still. And the army came in to do sandbagging. And these folks, they carried themselves differently. They just had this certain confidence to them. And I was like, I want to be like that.
Do you remember your very first day in a uniform in basic training, and that first feeling where you're like scared shitless, and it's terrible? Do you remember that day?
I do remember that day. Yeah, I was in Minto Armories, and we were all lined up in single file, and one of the instructors was just casually walking up and down the line and making odd comments to different guys and whatever else, and nothing really serious. But then he comes up to the guy right beside me, and he said, "I'm fucking watching you." And he points at him, and I was just like, "Ooh, like who is this guy? Like I have no idea who he is, and what's wrong with this guy, right?" So it turns out it was his son. Yeah, it was Jim Sagi pointing at Mike Sagi. So
And that was your basic training.
that was the first day of basic training. Yeah,
It was before they even started yelling. It was so I did my basic training in Winnipeg at Kapyong. That's where I did my basic and my SQ soldier qualification. It was in the summer of 2005, and I got it in May, but they said, don't report to the unit until you do your basic and your SQ. So I'm like, okay, no problem. And I had no idea how to even put any of these uniforms on or anything. I just had everything in a black garbage bag. And I showed up to the base, when I had to. I reported at whatever it was, 1600 hours on the Sunday. And immediately I was nervous as soon as I got there, because you saw everybody else, all the instructors were there. And I remember my course warrant, who would have been, running the course, and he was extremely intimidating. And I felt very nervous getting in there. And, you get into Capillon Barracks and you're in the city, but it's a barbed wire fence around the entire place. And you're going to be living in these shacks or whatever, that's what they called them at that time. And you have to walk through up into where you're going to be staying. And there was like corporals, master corporals, warrants, sergeants, all kind of on both sides, just extremely intimidating, walking through this kind of sea of people. And you're like, I don't know when this is all going to start. And that was for sure, like nothing had even happened yet. And I was nervous.
Why am I here? It was maybe during one of our field exercises, and we were digging trenches, and the instructor said, "All right, smoke break." So we all hopped out of the trench and dropped our shovels and started smoking cigarettes. And a couple guys that weren't smoking cigarettes, and the instructor looked, "What the hell are you guys doing?" I said, "Smoke break. If you're not smoking, keep digging." Yeah, and that was probably the biggest, like, oh, okay.
The minute I got there, so I flew to Gagetown, New Brunswick, and I had no idea what I was in for. And my God, the first week or so was just pure terror. And yeah, every minute I could, I like hid in a phone booth and just like completely had to recompose myself until a week later, I realized that all the people in my platoon were now my best friends in the world, and I would do anything for them. And at that point, I'm like, okay, now I'm good to go.
At first, it was a bit of a shock because we just got thrown into sections in a regular force company. And so a lot of that was, again, I had to prove myself to them that I was, a good enough soldier to be there with them. There was there's always been a stigma between, reservists and regular force, and so it was pretty tough for like the first few months until we actually hit the field and started doing some of the training out in the field, and then all the berets were off, and so my reservist cap badge wasn't shining out right anymore, and everybody was like, well, he seems like he's good to go. Like he's doing the work. He can fit in just fine. And you start becoming friends with the guys in your company or your platoon, and then you start to fit in. And that's kind of when things clicked for that.
Because I didn't really know anybody in the military, I had no idea what to expect. All I could go off of is movies. That's it. That's all I could go off. I was in cadets when I was young, and I hated it. I hated being in cadets because all we did was drill, and I did not like marching. So that's why I thought I'd never be in the military. But yeah, I was nervous. That went away after a while. You just get used to the rhythm. I think that was probably the hardest thing to get used to is, all the timings, all the rhythm, the waking up every night to walk around and do fire picket, and and just all these little timings that they had. Okay, you had to be here at this time, be here at this time. That took a lot just to get used to. Especially somebody that was in university that, could sleep in and go to class in the afternoon and, didn't have much to do other than go to school, right? That was a huge learning curve there. But that really sets the tone for what you're going to get into. So I was in my, my engineer course in New Brunswick. We were in Gagetown, and it was Sunday night. And normally Sundays after 4:00, all the instructors would leave you alone. Normally, right? Because they'd let you get ready for the next day of whatever was going to ensue. But not this night. So, they all of a sudden they call an impromptu, like, hey, everybody's got to get here at 1700. they're at the mess hall, like trying to gather everybody up. Everybody's got to be there at 1700. They have the core seniors trying to get everybody there. So they get everybody there at 1700. Whenever they talk to us in these courses, we're usually in the push-up position, or we've done a lot of push-ups just so we're ready to go. And, immediately we were set into, okay, we're going to have an inspection, impromptu inspection. What inspection is, they wanted to check where our sleeping quarters, we slept in modular tents, and they're like, okay, we're doing an inspection in like 10 minutes. So everyone frantically gets back to their tents. We, make sure all of our areas are exactly the same in this tent, and there's like 5 tents, and they all have to be the exact same. The inspection, it doesn't go well. The instructors get pretty mad because we only had 10 minutes to get everything done. Immediately, they tell us, okay, everybody head to the showers, have a shower, come back. You have 60 seconds. Go run to the showers. Get everything done. So, to do this is probably 5 to 10 minutes because it's a 2-minute walk. Nobody gets it done. We don't even get there. They have this planned out. There's an instructor waiting there. They're like, no. We run back to our tents. They're like, okay, because you didn't hit that timing, we want all these tents picked up, all the contents inside moved to that area over there, which is about 500 meters away. Set up the whole space exactly the same again, all the tents, and you have 15 minutes to do that. So everyone starts panicking. We start unhooking all of our tents, picking up the tents, walking over, grabbing all our cots. An impossible task that we could never hit. Didn't do it, not even close, but we had everything in the middle. It was just like stuff everywhere across 500 meters. And then they call us. We didn't do it. They're like, okay, showers again. Go to the showers. We don't do that timing. Pick up the tents, move them back. And this ensued. This ensued for a couple hours on a Sunday night. I remember we finally finish everything. We get everything back probably about, 10, 11 o'clock at night. We're absolutely gassed, exhausted. And then, we have to get ready for the next day. And we're, in those courses, there's lots of homework and memorization of different ordnance and bombs and that kind of thing. So, we always were doing setting and stuff like that the night before. But that really tests your mental, your teamwork, right? Because it's so easy to get mad at somebody else that's not pulling their weight, especially at the end of the day on Sunday.
So when I got in, people were of the opinion that we were post-history at that point. We were friends with the Russians. It was pre-9/11, and it was during Canada's peacekeeping phase, right? And when I got in, the lion's share of our effort was peace support operations in the former Yugoslavia. So that was the main effort, and it was trying to maintain peace in politically complicated environments. Bosnia being, a perfect example. It's so many factions involved, and war there between basically 3 factions in Bosnia proper. And the war itself ended in 95 with the Dayton Peace Accord. And then peace support operations transferred from the UN to NATO. And I got there for the first time in 2000. So by the time I got there, the war had ended. And so our job was to just maintain the peace. And again, I sort of used the phrase peace support operations in politically complicated environments, which strangely mirrors some of the stuff that we are doing today insofar as some of the social unrest that's happening on our own shores now.
In the company there was, and my section, we were all first time to Afghanistan. Yeah. Well, we were pretty good friends when he was in the rifles. We hung out once in a while, but not as much until we started workup training. And he was one of the guys that I knew in the company, and so I went to him right away just because he was already switched over to Patricia's. So he was already acclimatized and accepted by them. So I figured I'd hang out with Mike because A, I like him, and B, it was a good way for me to get, brought into the fold. I want to say it's kind of a weird feeling because you're in this new country, new place, and there's danger everywhere apparently, and then you just get thrown through this bit of an admin ringer for a few days while you're getting all your kit, getting your gear, getting your rifle zeroed, sorting out accommodations and that sort of thing, and then you start switching over. I think that's one that moment we drove out of Kennar Airfield is when it was like, okay, we're in the business now.
21 by the time I got there for the first time. Well, you get there, and I remember as we're flying into Zagreb, and I look down and I see 3 Mi-24 Heinz Soviet-era gunships on the tarmac. And that's, when you're in battle school and you're learning all your AFV, your armored fighting vehicle recognition and all that kind of stuff, that's like one of the scariest things out there for a Western infantryman, and it's 3 of them sitting right there, and it's kind of like, there it is, and you get onto the bus, and it's a good 4 or 5 hour ride from Zagreb to where we're going in Bosnia, and it's just, you see something that you're not used to in Canada. You see the remnants of armed conflict. You see areas that have warning signs all over the place, warning of mines. You see barbed wire and the hulks of armored vehicles that used to be functional. Now they're just left by the wayside. And just on the bus ride, I saw the remnants of a war. And it's something that when you see for the first time in person, it's really something else. You see it on the movies and that sort of thing, but when you actually see it in person, it's a little different. And when I also saw families and children, and again, this is 5 years after the war, but there's still a lot of residual stuff there. There's still a lot of open wounds there. And when you see those open wounds, it's heavy. Particularly for a kid from Canada with a pretty genteel upbringing, right?
Mike was goofy. Yeah, he was a goofy guy. Yeah, he was funny. I talked to Mike shortly before he was killed, and it was in FOB Wilson, and my platoon was going to another FOB to do security there. His platoon was doing patrolling, and we were close to the end of our tour, and so we were looking at dates and things like that. It's like, well, I guess we're not gonna, I guess we'll probably won't see each other until we're back in Canada. So the last thing I ever said to him was, I'll see you in Canada. And yeah, it's right at the end. It was within, I think, just a couple days of him supposed to be coming home. He was supposed to be leaving, I think maybe a week later. Our platoon and his platoon actually were supposed to switch spots right before that. And I think the platoon commanders just talked to each other, and it's like, what's the point of us switching out spots for 4 days? We'll just keep on patrolling or whatever, and you guys stay in the FOB. And I guess they decided that was what it was going to be. And so his platoon was doing some patrols, and they were going to a specific spot where a lot of Canadians have been attacked, and their lad was hit with a recoilless rifle that punched through it and killed him and 2 others and wounded, I think, 3 more.
At the time, I just wanted to get home and have my hot boy summer. And I remember watching movies about like college kids or something having a great time while I was over there in Bosnia, and I was just like, man, this sucks, you know? And in retrospect, it was one of the greatest things I've ever done. Some of the poverty as a result of the war and some parts of the country could have just as easily been 18th century, and then you drive 50 kilometers and it's juxtaposed with, at the time, 20th century. That dichotomy was really striking to me. And just some of the young people, their resilience and the fact that they've seen firsthand some of the dumb shit that led them there, and they were very adamant that they weren't going to repeat those mistakes. And they were adamant about that in a way that young people of the same age back in Canada just didn't have a spirit or zeal for, you know. That was striking to me. But the mindset in the military in general was different. My mindset was different. I was a little older. And the other part is that the first time I was over there, that country and its people sank its teeth so deeply into me that I was so grateful to be back and be able to help out in any way I could the second time. The guys I was with on that tour in 2003 was A Company, 2 PPCLI. And a few years later, in 2006, the year I got hired with the police, those guys got lit up on that tour. And there was a number of guys that I knew that were very well with me on that tour in Bosnia that didn't make it from their tour in Afghanistan. Keith Morley, Shane Keating. Shane Keating, he was actually supposed to be in my class for the police. He wanted to do one last tour with the boys, and that was in August. And then September 18th, 2006, he was killed.
Yeah, so now, I'm getting ready to go out to Afghanistan, and all my training leading up to it, you do about 18 months. It just felt like regular training. Like I was just training like anything else. When it really felt real was when we were in Edmonton and we were in the staging area, and my now wife was with me there, and my immediate family, my parents, my 2 brothers and my sister are all there. They all came from Saskatoon, and my girlfriend at the time came from Winnipeg, and we're just like waiting in this like area for a few hours, basically to get on a bus to go to the airport. That's when it felt really real, because there's all these families there. There's everybody saying goodbye. You have your section, your platoon, whoever's going with you at the same time is all there. And it's really real because there's a lot of tears, like a lot of tears. And they have, they're trying to make it light. So they have people playing like music, violin, and they're just, trying to make it great. But everyone really realized then, it's like, oh yeah, okay, we're leaving. And I remember so many tears from like my family, my girlfriend, and it's even hard bringing that back up again. Like even thinking about it, it was so real then. And once they all left, and then you got onto a bus, and now you're going to the airport, it felt not as bad anymore, right? Until we landed in Afghanistan, because the journey to get there is long, right? We get there in the middle of the night, and immediately you're like getting shuffled. There's like, you're in Kandahar airfield. There's so many soldiers there, and they get you to go, do a weapons test. And you've been flying for 48 hours. You're tired, and you almost forget how to do all this stuff. And they're like grading you, and if you don't pass, you don't even get to leave the base. So and it felt really stressful because there's a lot of people, they're yelling at you, and you're like, aren't we on the same team? Like, we just got here. Let's just, and you're in the desert. It's dark. You don't know what's going on. It's pitch black out, and you're just here now. And you don't really know what's going to happen. Like, am I staying on this base? Am I going out somewhere else? You don't really know when you get there day one. They kind of keep you there for a couple days, 2-3 days. And within that first 3 days, there was like an air raid siren because like somebody shot a rocket into the base. And at first, the first time that happens, you're really like, you're doing everything that you're supposed to and taught to do. It's like, oh, okay, where's my weapon? Put my helmet on. Put my flak vest on. You put everything on, and you're like, okay, where's our positions? We're going here. And you're like in a hotel almost. And then, it passes because this place is massive. And at the beginning, you're really like worried about that. And you're getting ready. But after like a couple months, that happens, and you don't even move. You don't even wake up. And like, unless like shrapnel or something came into your area, you're not even concerned with it. Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier, so you get to Kandahar, you're doing all these tests, and
You stayed in the airfield for 3 days. Kind of everybody does that. You get checked in, you do all this kind of stuff. And then we left. We got our vehicle, you go through all your stuff, and you leave. And I was like, there was 5 of us, and we were deployed to a really small base with like, 40 people at it. That's it. We're the engineer support for this little base. So we get there, and it's small. Like, you have to make your own. You're cooking for everybody. You're sleeping on a cot. You're in an old school. You're doing all the security at night during the day. Like, it's really small, and you just do small like patrols from here. And you just, you go to the different neighboring towns and you patrol. So on our first patrol, the first time we actually do anything like that, because we came in on a helicopter. So this is the first time we're kind of doing this. We get hit by an IED. The first time. And I remember thinking this exact thought as soon as this hit. And we called this moon dust because it was so dry. There was just dust everywhere. You couldn't see anything. And you immediately think, there is no way I'm actually going to make it out of this place. Because the first time I left, we hit something. The very first time. And you're like stunned. You're kind of shocked. You're like, oh, okay. Now you have to rely on the training. You have to go like, hey, what am I supposed to do? And we made it out of that event fine. Our vehicle didn't. But we all did. So we got extremely lucky that first time. But it was just a reality check. It's like, ooh, okay. I got to rely on my training. I had to be careful. And, we're going to have to work together here if we actually want to make it out of this place, like, alive.
That was pretty heavy because I ended up being Mike's escort home. And so I went back to CAF either that day or the next day. Was part of the ramp ceremony, and my part in the ramp ceremony was actually I was in the back of the lab for that ramp ceremony, and then I pushed him out to members of the section that were the pallbearers from the lab onto the Herc. And then once that was done, I got out of the lab into the Herc, and I flew back with him. into Canada. So actually, we went to Camp Mirage first, and so I more or less pushed him off the plane, wheeled him into a secure facility, day in Mirage, and then back out to the plane, pushed him onto the next plane, rode that. That was flying another platoon out to Cyprus for decompression, where I spent, I think it's like 3 or 4 days, maybe 5, but where there's like conferences and some other things. Yeah, it's like a wind down period from coming back from like a war zone to, back to our civilization, right? So then those guys gone off. The group that was just there, the platoon that was there for decompression, got on the plane. I stayed on it. And we flew back to Canada into Trenton. And then we had another ransom ceremony there, where I wanted again in the plane, pushing him out to the pallbearers. They carry him over to the hearse. I walk out, go into the hearse, in the front of the hearse, and that drive from Trenton to Toronto on the Highway of Heroes was something else. It was crazy. Just to see all the support from Canadians. Everybody, every single bridge along that highway was just lined with people in Canada flags and fire trucks with flags up on the ladders, all that stuff. And it was actually really heartening to feel like people wanted us there, and it felt like we were doing a good work. And then it was 5 days in Toronto, where at the coroner in Toronto, where they do the autopsies of every soldier that's killed. Yeah, and then at the end of that 5 days, we went to the coroner's office, and they actually showed me the casket. And that was the first time I saw Mike. I said, I'll see you back in Canada.
First time, I'll say the first time and the last time. So the first time we got into a contact, it's like when we hit the ID for the first time. It's like, oh boy, okay, this is happening now. In Afghanistan, if you've seen pictures, like they have those grape huts, right? And that's where, a lot of contact came from there. So Taliban were firing out of this grape hut. And, you get really nervous, you go into your positions, and, usually with an infantryman, so they're kind of directing that portion of it. And usually it was over fairly quickly. But in actual ticks, probably, 15 to 20 times that happened. And sometimes there'd just be pot shots, and it would be annoying because you'd have to stop what you're doing and give that your attention. One time we were using chainsaws cutting down trees because we wanted, lots of what we did was open up areas for sight lines. So we would blow up mountains, cut down trees, move walls, so that we had better sight lines. And usually they'd come and they'd take a few shots, and then we'd have to stop and then engage. The last time that I was in a firefight, it was the last patrol I went on in Afghanistan, last one. And I was doing a turnover to the incoming engineers. And the turnover was about 4 to 5 patrols who would go with them. So they were with me, and I knew like half the people on there from my 3 courses and 5 courses. I knew them. We were really good friends. And in the military, it doesn't matter if you see somebody, you don't see them for 3-4 years, you still know them. You can still have a conversation. It doesn't matter, right? So we were on this last patrol. It's my last one, and a good friend of mine. It was between me and him who was gonna go, and then I'm like, whatever, I'll go. I'll take them out, whatever. So we end up going, and we're just going to check out a position. And we do that. We get out to our position. It's kind of a long day. You know, we left. Usually we would leave like in the dark, right? Because we want to be wherever we're going to be when light comes up. So we'd leave at 3 a.m., right? 2 a.m. And then we'd be there at 6 a.m. when the sun come up. We're already there. So kind of like the element of surprise. They always knew we were coming, but, you know, we felt better about it. So then we did our thing, and we searched and whatever, and it was successful. So we're coming back. And we are not far from our base. You can see it because it's a hill. It's called Spurwingar. It's a hill. There's a command post on the top. You can see it. You're like, oh, great. You know, I'm going to get some hot food as soon as I get back. And I remember looking off into a field because I'm, you know, just scanning around. And I'm right in the middle. And I see 4 people in the field, in the middle of the field, all standing exactly split, like perfectly. They're just standing there, all looking at us. And I think about this like all the time. Like now, like, you know what? I wish I would have like caught on that cue. Like nobody would ever be standing like that exact and looking at us. I didn't think anything of it. I just looked and went, okay, whatever. But immediately after that, we got hit by an IED. Immediately after that. It was a remote detonated IED. It hit us right in the middle of the patrol. We had probably about 40, 50 people. And then usually right after an IED hits, then a firefight starts. And it did. And it went on for about an hour. And that one was, you know, it was intense because it actually lasted a little bit longer. There was casualties. So we're dealing with casualties. We had to have American medics come airlift people out while we were in this conflict. We had to have people come from the base, from Forward Operating Base, and help us with it because there was enough going on. And we were in it for about an hour, 2 hours. And we were just exhausted by the end, like absolutely exhausted because you're running around with 100 pounds worth of gear and you're trying to do this firefight and you're trying to move back. You know, we were successful in the firefight. Overall, it wasn't a great day because we had casualties in that day. And we made it back. We, you know, everyone that I was with, we made it back, all the engineers. And I remember going to see my fire team partner at the base. And everybody, like when this happens this close, everyone's listening to the radio. Everyone's like at the base listening to the radio because they're trying to hear what's going on, right? And you don't have video, you just have the radio, whatever's coming through the radio. And I remember he thought that I got injured. Maybe that came through, I don't know. And I remember like exactly when he saw me, he's like, holy shit. You know, he gave me a huge hug. He's like, I can't believe that happened. He felt super bad because he was supposed to go on this. And I ended up going instead of him. Yeah, and it's really intense. You know, your adrenaline's pumping as high as possible. Your heart rate's going, and you're just living on adrenaline in this time. But then when you're done, you're just like, you fall right off. And yeah, it was. You also get kind of like maybe even a little bit emotional after like that all happens, because it's such a high. And yeah, then you make it back, and now it's just done, right? And then you have a after action review, and you review it like, okay, well, this could happen again, so tomorrow. So let's just get prepared and get ready to go back at it again. There's lots of highs and lows. Lots of highs and lows. But I think all the training we did, all the lead up preparation, and I feel like, I was pretty well suited to handle this. Like I was good at it. Time didn't stop when you were away. So, you're gone for 7 months and lots of stuff happens while you're away. So you're trying to get caught back up. Plus you're so like trained to do things a certain way. So you're like, okay, well, I get up at this time, I eat at this time, like I work out here, like, and just some things you just don't want to tolerate them, right? You just like, once you get back into civil life, right, you have to be able to tolerate stuff. You have to be like, okay, yeah, all right, in the military, it's not like that at all. If you don't like something and you're a higher rank, it's like, do this, that's it. Like there's no conversation, there's no feeling, it's just do it. Like, this is what we're doing. Like, I made a decision, go. So moving into civilization, back into Winnipeg and that kind of thing, and now interacting with family and friends and stuff like that who are not used to that and not doing that, it's a big adjustment. And it probably took me a couple of years to get back into that flow of things. And it would be so easy to go back because it's very structured. It's almost like comforting. You know exactly what to expect all the time. They're like, what's going on. You never have to think. It just happens. So that was a huge adjustment. Really, really big.
I'm really glad I was in the military, and I'm really, like, every minute, was never a moment wasted. I sometimes feel bad that I also never went to Afghanistan, because I kind of, I feel bad for not having been there with them, but it is what it is. I'm just, to me, just being a part of this community, I guess the veteran community, is to be part of a team of people that want to make a difference and want to do good so badly that they're willing to give everything for that. And I'm so glad to be part of that in the small way that I was, and those folks make the world go round. When I got back from Bosnia and then I left the regular force and went into the reserves, I went back to school and I was in university, and November 10th, everyone's just like, oh, what are you doing for the holiday? And that sort of thing. And that really bothered me. And just, there's sort of, there wasn't the reverence there that I thought there should be. And I never said anything, but I just at that point realized that I'm a little different now. Take for granted walking on the grass after being in a country where you can't walk on the grass for 6 months because there could be mines all over the place, from people that just they have trouble recognizing the value of living in a peaceful, safe country, and they think that just happens. They think that's for free. And to me, that's the part that I think hurts the most, but at the same time, there's a certain dignity knowing that that's not the case. And just to be part of the community, like I said, in the small way that I was, that, helped keep things safe and secure, is really something, particularly as I get older, that I'm so glad to have been a part of.
Oh, extremely proud. Yeah, I would do it again, no problem. I mean, I have 3 kids and a wife, so they would probably not want me to do it. But if you get into the military, you want to go on a tour. Like, that's why you go into the military. At first, I didn't think that's why you got into the military. At first, I got in the military because I thought that it was in helping with my school, and it could be a job in the summer. But then quickly you realize, if you want a job in the summer and help with the school, don't do this unless you want to do it, because it's such a commitment. But when, they came around and said, like, hey, we're looking for volunteers, or, who wants to put up their hand to go to Afghanistan, it was like not even a thought. It was like immediately, yeah, I want to go, 100%. Like, let's do this. And I didn't want to do like just any tour. I'm like, no, I want to be battle group. I want to be like, whatever the hardest thing is that I can do, that they'll let me get into, I want to do that. And if I wouldn't, if I didn't want to have a family and, want to stay kind of grounded in one spot for my family and friends and everything like that, I would be in the military. So I love the military. I love that lifestyle. It's a lifestyle, it's not really a job. And I really like challenging myself. So that's probably why I liked it, because it's a challenge like that most people do not get to experience. So yeah, definitely proud that I went to Afghanistan.
Do it all
In
again.
a heartbeat. It's funny, I always felt bad, because I think in retrospect I kind of had a bad attitude sometimes when I was in the Army, like kids. And you know how Army guys bitch and complain and all that other kind of stuff, but man, I wouldn't have changed anything. I'd be an entirely different cat had I not joined the military.
I don't know. It's tough, right? I think a lot of people who went to Afghanistan felt like it was all for nothing. And I really hope that it wasn't.